Hey there, Richard here. Now, we've had a lot of virtual events since lockdown, haven't we? But one of the most fun, uplifting, and interesting events I was a part of this summer was SmileBack's Remote Connect virtual event. Thank you, SmileBack, for putting an event together and changing our expectations of what a virtual event really can be. Well, SmileBack are putting together a follow-up event, Remote Connect 2.0, and this time we're going back to the future. On Wednesday, October the 28th, 2020, we're putting aside the hype and getting back to basics. We're going to explore the tried and true foundations of good business. We're going to be offering an in-depth look at leadership, customer experience, and airtight operations. So we're going to be featuring a keynote by my main man, Roger Edwards, who's going to be talking about marketing and how to get rid of the complicated marketing speak. Plus, we'll be hearing from tech entrepreneur Philip Morgan. Plus, I'll be hosting a session with my friends Tim Swainson of Kemp and Jason Kemsley from Uptime Solutions. And on top of all of that, we're going to have various breakout sessions from industry leaders and a fireside finale with me and Eric Thorsell, one of the most successful managed service provider owners in our whole industry. Plus, of course, the return of your favorite magician and mentalist, Gary Farrar. So Remote Connect 2.0 Back to the Future takes place on Wednesday, October the 28th. Tickets are priced at just $10. And I'm going to say, if you're a fan of this podcast, I can tell you you're going to enjoy what we have planned. So for all the details and to grab your ticket, head to tub.co/Remote Connect 2. That's tub.co/Remote Connect 2. See you there. Hey folks, Richard Tubb here, and I am thrilled to be joined today by Andrew Wallace, the Berlin-based Managing Director and Chief Product Officer of SmileBack, a customer satisfaction platform for managed service providers. Now, SmileBack is the #1 rated integration on the ConnectWise marketplace, and their CSAT, Customer Service, Net Promoter Score, NPS, and reporting tools are used by nearly all of the top MSPs that I've worked with. Andrew, welcome to Tubb Talk.
Hello, good to be here.
It was way back in Tubb Talk episode 18, I think it was, that I interviewed my old friend, Brad Benner, the founder of SmileBack. So perhaps for anyone who isn't familiar with SmileBack, could you give us a potted history of the business? Because things have moved on quite a bit since Brad founded the company.
And what episode are we at now?
It's a good question. We're up in the 80s now.
Wow. Okay, that's amazing. Yeah. So since then, I've come on obviously as Managing Director and Chief Product Officer, and that was about 18 months ago. And my mandate was really to drive product development at SmileBack. So for when you would have met with Brad and sort of the history of the company was very focused on CSAT. And, we've become absolutely, and I think considered roundly to be the experts in the MSP space on, and even in the help desk space on CSAT. However, historically, the company really focused perhaps too exclusively on just the CSAT product and just the quality and the integrity and the polish of that survey. And that has served us well. But as a SaaS company and in the technology space, you always need to have a sense of momentum. At least I think you always need to. And so really what we've, over the last 18 months, is we've probably built more features and functionality and delivered more value to our customers than we did in the 4 or 5 years prior to that. As one of my business partners, Ryan Grant Little, like to say, we basically had a Ferrari under a blanket in the garage. And so I'm not a car guy, I'm a driver's license, but if I could, I would take that Ferrari out for a drive, and show the MSPs and tell them to hop in and come along for the ride. So now we're a CSAT company, we're an NPS company. We've really zeroed in on our value proposition around being experts in that space and also providing consultation to our customers around how they can empower their business. So we're not just about surveys, but how they empower their business with that. And not only how do they collect feedback, but how do they analyze and report on that feedback, and how do they leverage that feedback, take action from that feedback.
Yeah, that makes sense. I want to jump into SmileBack and obviously customer satisfaction a little bit more, but I've got to ask, so you are Berlin-based, but how did a Canadian end up heading up in Berlin, in Germany, heading up one of the top CSAT companies in the entire MSP space?
Randomly, very, very randomly. So my previous company was a company called Chef's Plate, which was in the meal kit delivery industry. And so we were the first to market in Canada. And we were, though, a tiny little Canadian company trying to compete against the multinationals that were moving into this space. And HelloFresh, which is the leader, the worldwide leader in that space, came in and purchased us so that they could be number one, because the only country they weren't number one in was Canada. I feel like this is the first time in the history of business that someone was like, we need Canada. But I'm glad that they did. And so, so they bought my company. And so they really wanted us for, and I was the director of product and technology. And so they really, one of the big things they were buying us for was the number one position, plus our technology was really good. And they are a Berlin-based company. So I was here transitioning my team and my technology, and a series of very fortuitous drinks led me to meeting Ryan Grant Little, who was the managing director at the time and now one of my business partners. And I consulted, and then one day he said, do you just want to come here and take over the company? You know, Brad, Jameson, Henrik, all the founders would like you to. And 13 days later, I moved to Berlin.
Wow. And Berlin, one of the coolest places on the planet. So it must be a thrill for you to live and work there now.
Yeah, I really love Europe, and I've always loved Berlin. And I was here 15 years ago. I had an affair, I guess. And so I was in love and in Berlin. And so there's this kind of nice symmetry to it. And it's always had a special place in my heart. And yeah, we have it's weird that I'm based in Berlin because our company is very much American and we serve English speaking markets, but it just so happens that this is where I am. And I have a team here, as well as a team in Lviv, Ukraine, and a team now that I've set up in Toronto, Canada.
Yeah, and I'll dig a little bit more into that and how you as MD manage that sort of remotely distributed workforce. But I want to dig in at the moment to the MSP space. I've spoken to lots of MSPs, as I mentioned earlier, and almost, you're not quite ubiquitous, but almost exclusively the top MSPs in the industry, I say, hey, what do you use for customer satisfaction? Oh, SmileBack. So like, you're across the board, everybody using them. And I've spoken to so many SmileBack clients who have told me that the real value on the platform is twofold. They say they're able to get much more feedback than they would using native sort of survey tools, but it's the ability to act on that feedback immediately. So tell us more about that. How do you enable MSPs to act upon the feedback?
Yeah, so first of all, that's great to hear. And we see our value proposition as threefold and a bit of a journey. So there's the first piece, which is collecting feedback. That's the surveys themselves, CSAT and NPS. The second piece is analyzing and collecting feedback, analyzing and reporting on feedback. So that's the insights you get from getting real-time data. And then the third piece is leveraging feedback. So that's taking action. And so it's great that the customers you've spoken to have really seen that in action. And so how we help them get a lot of feedback is by our commitment to the simplicity of design of the survey, by making sure it is that one-click, automatically triggered, really easy to understand survey on a ticket, on a service ticket, which you get those 3 smileys. So that helps you get the feedback, and then just opening a very simple web page that allows them to very easily leave the testimonial piece. But how they leverage it is by using, because that's the survey that hits the end user, right? The customer's client, how our customers as end users use our product, use the SmileBack application. That's where they can take real action. So that's where as they dig into the dashboard, they can have real-time insights into how their interactions are going with their customers, how their business is doing. And then they can set up automation actions that they can set up within the SmileBack product that are effectively if-then statements that we've programmed for them, and they have a level of customization. So as they start to understand feedback and they realize, for positive feedback, we need to do this, for negative feedback, we need to do this, they can build that right into the platform. So those operations are going, underneath the hood, so to speak, at all times, creating a system for feedback, not just feedback in terms of here's my score.
Yeah, makes absolute sense. And it's the simplicity that's, Actually, if I go back and I say I did a SmileBack video demo not so long ago with your colleague, Rory Gallagher, and I'll include a URL to that into the show notes for podcast listeners. But one MSP I spoke to told me that they get like a 1% average response rate to their CSAT surveys, using the standard ticketing survey. Yet Rory told me that SmileBack MSPs are averaging a 42% response rate. I just want to let that sink in for listeners for a minute. From 1% to 42%. That's incredible. So it's the simplicity. So for anybody who's not seen the SmileBack platform before, just talk me through really basically what it looks like for an end user.
Yeah, so it depends on which ticketing system you're using, but more or less, when the ticket is closed, so the service desk agent or tech or whatever we want to call them finishes that interaction, and CSAT is a measure of a transaction or an interaction with the client, then we send as a final communication through the ticketing system or through the email that is sent by the ticketing system, a one-click survey that has one question, which is usually, how did you feel about X, right? How did you feel about this interaction? How was this interaction? And then 3 smiley faces, green, yellow, red. And that's positive, neutral, or negative. And that is the CSAT standardized methodology. And so it's really important that we use that because then you can benchmark your data, et cetera, et cetera. But it's really that one simple question with one subject, one verb, and those 3 smiley faces presented at the right time in the right way. And those are key things. And that's where we're very committed to our expertise and the way to achieve the metrics. Right? To achieve that high response rate, to achieve those high scores is through having a very simply designed survey that is served in the right way at the right time. And then the customers have, or the clients, I should say, have the optional, they can then leave a comment, but they don't have to. And that's how you increase the response rate as well, because we've often had feedback, oh, could we make leaving a question mandatory? We'd love to get more questions or more testimonials. Totally understand that. It's just not the right method to achieve that goal, right? There's other methods to achieve that goal. So if you want a high response rate, it has to be survey at the end of a ticket, question asked optionally.
So there's going to be a lot of MSPs listening to this and they say, yeah, we've got like a simple ticket survey system used. We think it's simple, but as we've already said, most MSPs get about a 1% response rate. What is broken about the simple ticket system, survey systems that most MSPs use, Andrew?
Yeah, I think, and I have been wondering that myself. I'm actually shocked how low it is because it should be closer to us. It really should be. And so I just think that there's a lack of dedication from these platforms, which makes sense. If I'm Zendesk, if I'm ConnectWise Manage, if I'm Autotask, that's not what they focus on all the time, right? That's why they smartly create a vendor community and they encourage vendors like us into the space so that we can provide expertise and dedicate ourselves. As I said, we're focused exclusively on customer feedback. And so I think it's not so much that these surveys are broken. I often think of them actually as a gateway drug or a gateway survey to SmileBack, right? Once they get a little taste, they go, oh, this is good. But if we had more feedback, if we had better feedback, think about how we can improve our business. It's just they don't have the same level of sophistication and dedication to understanding just this one piece of the value chain, which is what we do.
We're recording this, we're a few months into lockdown and the COVID-19 situation. I think we're doing quite well, Andrew. We got about 20 minutes into the interview without mentioning COVID, but there we go. Right. The world of customer satisfaction has radically changed. I think people always realized that customer satisfaction was important, but during COVID, everybody working from home, it's just been accentuated to the nth degree. And I'm seeing winners and losers in the MSP space now. It's not enough to just do tech support. The human element is so incredibly important for MSPs now to make sure that they're that trusted partner. They're the other end of the phone, not just for tech issues, but for all things. Have you seen an upsurge in interest in SmileBack and customer satisfaction as a result of COVID?
To a certain degree, yes. I think we've seen, I would say, and our first priority during the pandemic, especially in the initial lockdown, was to our existing customers. That is the key to us. Growth comes second. And so we really focus on our existing customers. How can we help them? How can we, if they need help, what can we do? Both from a financial standpoint and from because feedback is so important right now, as you said, even more important than it was before, given first there was a gap in terms of technical knowledge and you're not in the same place, but now you've even got more uncertainty, more chaos, and less confidence. And that, I think, just makes the vacuum even larger. So we're trying to help them. Okay, feedback is really important right now. But we have seen a lot of customers who have said to us, we've never been getting more and better feedback because we've been asking for it. Their clients have been really appreciative of that. So I would say that the interest has been more in the terms of appreciation from clients and customers seeing really positive returns right now to using a feedback system. And then in terms of the sales side is where we'd see increased market interest from MSPs. And yes, we have seen more people knocking at our door, which is great, both for us and I think for the MSPs. And they've been saying things, similar to what you just said, going, oh, wow, I've really now, both from an internal operations, but more importantly, from managing my business relationships, I'm really seeing the downside of not having a CSAT NPS customer feedback system in place.
Yeah. I know SmileBack is very big on the visibility of stats. You've already touched upon it, and perhaps we'll go a bit deeper. Pre-COVID, I visited a number of your clients, MSPs in the UK, who have got this big screen in their office and they've got, SmileBack info and statistics displayed on it. In the age of COVID-19 and distributed teams, how are you recommending that your MSP clients keep an eye on the stats without that big screen in the office?
Yeah, I think using the SmileBack app is probably the best way to do it. We've built a dashboard for both the NPS and the CSAT surveys. You get real-time information there. You can segment it, you can filter it, you can do all types of things with it. And so I think it's really important that especially the manager level is looking at that to keep their finger on the pulse, so to speak, and to understand, what are the trend lines in the business right now? Where do they need to focus their energy on issues, and where can they celebrate success? Because you don't have that unifying piece of that physical board on the wall, which is all in itself just taking digital data and putting it on a wall, right? It's still levels removed from the human piece. And then there's also ways of kind of bringing it to life within your team. So we have a Slack integration through Zapier that customers can use so that the feedback is coming in real time. We have integrations, and we're building one with MS Teams as well currently, and we're actually building a native Slack integration as well, so that can be visible amongst the team, kind of taking the place in many ways of that TV in the room. And then there's a lot of integrations out there, BrightGauge, et cetera, that we've built and support that allow people to just see the data at all times and just try to keep it front of mind. Because I think that's what the point of having that television displaying the data is, right? It's to keep it top of mind, always remind people that what they're trying to do and that this score is a way of materializing or substantiating or quantifying what their goal is.
Yeah, we're big on acronyms in the IT industry. We've already mentioned CSAT, customer satisfaction. We've mentioned NPS a few times, Net Promoter Score. For anybody not familiar with NPS, how would you describe what Net Promoter Score is?
So Net Promoter Score, I think, is quite interesting. It's really, and I think it's weird, honestly, how it's trendy. It's like a trendy acronym thing going on in the world right now. And what it measures is your relationship with a customer, or, if you're using it in different, they always say your relationship with a customer, business, or product or service. It's very powerful when it's taken with CSAT, because CSAT measures the individual transaction. How did this go? Whereas NPS is supposed to be a measurement of the relationship, and it asks the question, how likely are you to recommend X? And then you score it on a 0 to 10 scale. And the importance of that is that the likelihood to recommend is a sign or an approximation of loyalty, and loyalty is a sign of the business health. And it's quite smart in the sense that what are called detractors, so the lower end of the score, those are businesses at risk, relationships at risk that need attention. Passives are, it's just fine, but usually you think more of a passive as trending to a detractor, and you want them to trend into promoter. And then promoters are growth opportunities. They've just said that they would recommend your business. So that's a signal to you that you can, work them to get more leads to grow your business. It's exactly, as it says, a promoter. And so this can be quite a powerful tool, because then you have a 360-degree understanding of your customer. You understand the individual transactions, and you understand the relationship, and on their own, they're great tools as well, but they have blind spots, right? You can imagine a scenario where you have 100 like top flawless score, CSAT score, because your agents every single time are doing a great job. However, you don't find out then that you're missing a whole piece of the business. And then one day your customer goes to a competitor, and you just never knew, because if you had the NPS survey that would say, how happy are you with this company or service? You would get that passive score.
Yeah.
Similarly, on the NPS side, you can be very happy with the product, right? This MSP does exactly what I need it to do, but I'm really not happy with the service. And so if you don't have a CSAT, then you're not understanding that day-to-day interaction. And as a friend of mine said, in many ways, it's like CSAT measures the date, and NPS measures, the health of the whole relationship. And so when you put it in that frame, I think you can really see how the two different pieces work.
I love that. I love that analogy. That's a really cool way of thinking about it. And of course, It's not just enough to see great NPS scores, to see great CSAT and give yourself a pat on the back. Part of a great CSAT is actually, isn't it, reminding the customer that you're doing a good job. And that seems weird, but I can tell you as a former MSP owner, sometimes it is, or a lot of the time, it's really important that you remind the customer, hey, here's what you said about how good we are doing at the moment. So how do you give MSPs the ability to keep their clients informed of what's happening?
Yeah, so we give them the ability through reporting, built-in reporting functionality, so they can generate a report based on a date range for an individual company, so that they can take it to say if they're doing quarterly business reviews that has all of their data, all of the reviews, everything, the positive, negative, neutral, the NPS, all those scores, because as you said, it is very important to go into those meetings, one, fundamentally with data, two, to tell a good story when there's a good story, and three, to be prepared when there isn't a good story. And similar to the conversation we were having another time about, the importance of internally having an open culture where you treat positive and negative the same way. I don't mean you do the same things, but you put them on the same level. You also want to be able to go into those. You don't only want to share positive things. You want to share negative things, because those are opportunities to improve. And it's important to be transparent with your customers to say, look, we have this survey, we have all this data, and we did this for you because we want to know, are we providing the service you expect? How can we improve our service? And then also, if you can eliminate certain cognitive biases, say the day before the quarterly business review, there's a bad experience, and you can own that bad experience and say, yeah, we got the red CSAT on that bad experience. But remember, the whole rest of the quarter, we had a 98 and you loved us. And so now we can look at this situation, and we can look at the health of our business relationship a little more objectively. So that's a big part. And then we also, in terms of, because I've hit on this growth and opportunity piece a few times, we've created tools that allow the client, the end user, to advocate on behalf of the MSP. So this is the Google reviews feature where, and we see tons of end users doing it. It's great, where they hit a green smiley, or they hit a 10 on the NPS. They open that request for comment. They leave a testimonial, and then we have a one checkbox that says, take me to Google to put this on this company's Google My Business listing. And we've already copy and pasted and plopped it in there. And now, they've got a review not only internally, but externally, or they can use our website widget where we allow them to style a beautiful piece with their score and their reviews, and they can just drop that into their website. And so potential prospects or existing customers can see their score and their recent reviews, the reviews from the last 90 days, usually as a testament to the business.
Yeah, like social proof, and this is so important. It's a really simple feature actually, but incredibly powerful because so many MSPs, so many IT companies don't realize that when people perhaps don't know you as an MSP, the first thing they do is turn to Google and they say, okay, what are the reviews for this company? What are there other people saying about it? So you're making it really simple for MSPs, clients, when they're having a good experience, to say, oh, thank you. That's the ideal time then to say, would you mind giving us a testimonial, and make that process entirely simple. So it feeds into sales, it feeds into, all areas of the business really.
Yeah, and I think it's really important because especially in technology, there's just this element of trust, right? The MSP is by nature an expert and hired because whoever's hiring them doesn't know how to do this. And so I think especially when you're looking at, who do you want to hire, it can be quite difficult. And so when you see this element, as you called it, of social proofing, that really helps credibility. And I think, and I respect just the mentality of most MSPs for this, is that, they believe in the service they provide, and because they're experts and because they can do something useful, they don't think about trumpeting it to the public because, the proof is in the pudding, but really they're helping people by telling them how good they are because they want to know, they want to see that level of credibility, and it's useful to the end user to both know that they can do the job and that they've done the job for others and others have liked the way they've done that job.
Yeah, I had a conversation recently with a British MSP, and they were talking to me about service level agreements. And I don't want to get too geeky about this, but they said, I spoke to a potential client recently, and they asked what the SLA was for a priority one ticket. And the boss told them, 4 hours. And they said, why don't you spend 4 hours to get back to a priority one incident? And they said, oh, no. Our statistics actually show, it's more like 4 minutes. And they went, so why have you got an SLA of 4 hours? And there's a bigger question there about service level agreements. But my point here is you help MSPs to put figures on their website, don't you? To get their CSAT scores on their website. Again, to trumpet how good they actually are, not how good they say they are, but how good they actually are. Tell me more about, that ability for SmileBack MSPs to put their CSAT scores on the website.
Yeah, I think it's really important. And as we were just discussing, like we have the feature that allows you to do that, and why that's so important is for exactly that reason, but also because NPS and CSAT are industry recognized standards, right? These are not things that are made up. SmileBack didn't make this up. We're not going to make up our own SmileBack metric, right? And so it's a third party, and even if the end user probably doesn't know SmileBack, but at least they can see it's provided by somebody else. They can get more information off it about it, and it can lend credibility, right? And so that's why we created this feature, was so that they can go in on SmileBack, build to the specifications of their brand. We have all this styling and customizing. They can publish the reviews they want to publish. They can control that. They can't control the score. That's their score, but for good reason. And they can see their score and they can put it out there. And it just, as you said, it provides that level of social proofing that is critical, and it validates it through a third party. And it just gives their potential clients the opportunity to validate them, to see things from other users, and to go somewhere else to get more information. If they want to learn more, if they see NPS, they go, I've heard about that. Maybe I should get some more information. Or they can reach out to SmileBack and we can tell them about what NPS and CSAT is and why it's important in the MSP industry.
Yeah, I think this is a big differentiator actually for MSPs. They often talk about how can I differentiate myself from the competition. Customer service is actually a really good sales tool as well. Mm-hmm. From a technical perspective, you already touched upon this, but in terms of integrations, we've mentioned ConnectWise. You're number one in the ConnectWise marketplace. You've mentioned Slack. You've got connectivity with a whole host of industry tools. Can you run through some of those?
Yeah, so we're, and my marketing team hates it when I say that, but we're parasitic on other platforms, which just means that we live on top of other dedicated, whatever you want to call them, PSAs, help desks. And so there's 4 of them that we've currently integrated with, and that's where our customers are. So that's ConnectWise Manage, which is the one we have the deepest integration with and deepest relationships with, Autotask, Freshdesk, and Zendesk. And Autotask and ConnectWise obviously serve exclusively MSPs, and then there's some MSP-like businesses on Freshdesk and Zendesk, but we're really focused on the MSP market. And so those are our main platforms. And then once you become, if you're on that platform, you become a SmileBack customer, you can also integrate with a whole host of other services, other vendors in the community that helps kind of take feedback and supercharge it. The most common one for us is BrightGauge in terms of data visualization. But we also have integrations with Power BI as we see more and more customers getting deeper and deeper into the Microsoft tooling. So that's Microsoft Power BI. We have an integration with Zapier that is mostly used for Slack, but we're actually currently in progress on building native integration with Slack and Microsoft Teams to complement the Power BI. We're integrated with Captain's Chair. We're integrated with Dropbox, with Lametric. I can't remember them all, but there's 8 in total.
Wow. Yeah. Impressive stuff. So covering most of the bases there. Interesting I'm going to follow with interest the integration with Teams, because I think, that's going to be a big one for managed service providers going forward. So we'll check in with you about that. Yeah. I want to touch upon something. We've already touched upon it briefly, but analyzing customer feedback, that seems to be the secret sauce for very successful MSPs, certainly the ones that I've worked with and spoken with. So it isn't just enough to, do the CSAT and do the NPS surveys, it's to act upon them. Can you give us, without giving the trade secrets away, perhaps of your clients, but what processes do you see SmileBack MSPs using to analyze the feedback they receive from customers and to act upon it?
Yeah, and I see it as a journey, which I've probably said before, where it's a great start. It's an introduction when you start sending surveys and collecting data. But data without any level of analysis is just data. It's information, right? It's not knowledge, it's not insight. And so what you want to do in the analyzing and reporting piece is to start to build knowledge, build insight, because from insight you can take action. And we'll get to that part after. But yeah, so what we see customers, I think, who do a really good job with the reporting analysis is once they get to a level of scale, so they've been using the surveys for a while, they're getting a lot of data, they're starting to see trends. So there's the first part, right, is understanding your data, looking at it and say, okay, we're seeing trends, we're seeing movements in data over time, whether they're through deliberate intentional action or they're through the vagaries of what we already do. And so it's really important to see that and to compare the data over time. And then depending on the size of the business, you also want to be comparing it over segments, right? So if you have, say, different offices in the MSP space, a really easy one, different service boards, different types of interactions. In SmileBack with CSAT, you can tag the interactions as however you want, right? But common ones are time or satisfaction, or I don't know, something about their business itself. And so you want to start to segment, because that makes your understanding of the data richer. And then you can, once we get to the action piece, you can take more specific action that addresses more specific problems. And we provide a lot of the functionality enabling you to do that on both the CSAT side with the filtering and the tagging, et cetera, the metadata that comes from the tickets that then allows you to sort data by that. And then on the NPS side, how you set up a campaign. So you build the NPS surveys with this concept called campaign. And I don't want to get too much into the technical details. If anyone's interested, we can do a demo for them. But yeah, what it does is it just sets you up to then segment that data. So then when we get to the action piece, because again, reporting and analysis is great, it gets you to insights, but from those insights, you need to take action. And so this all enables the final piece of the puzzle, which is taking that action to improve your business.
Yeah, it's powerful stuff. And, I'll say this up front. I wish there was a tool like SmileBack around when I was running my managed service provider business, because I've been raised in business to manage based on metrics. And of course, I ran an MSP at the same time as Brad Benner, the founder. We were colleagues in HTG peer group. And so it's so excited when Brad went on to found the business and you've taken things to the next level. Let me ask you, in a broader terms of customer satisfaction, what's a common mistake that you see MSPs making in terms of CSAT with their own clients?
I think the number one thing is to see negative, negative scores, red smileys, as a bad thing. And I think that can be, and I understand why, obviously, from a human perspective, even just getting red, upside down, frowny face, it doesn't feel good. But the point of it not feeling good is to draw your attention to it so that you can take action. Again, coming back to that idea of taking action. And I think the common thing is either wanting to adjust the negative because internally they didn't think it was fair, or creating a culture where getting a negative score is shamed or punitive. These aren't the things you want to be doing. The customer has taken the time to tell you it was negative, and even better, sometimes left you a testimonial about that, explain the situation. And to me, what that says is, I'm invested in having this problem fixed because I'm telling you about it. It's an opportunity, right? It actually can be a reinforcement of the quality of the relationship because they're committing to providing you with this feedback to give you the opportunity to correct it. And so what they're doing is they're doing you a favor. And so you need to reward that by acting on it and having processes and protocols in place that deal with that both instantly and effectively. And so I think that's really important. And a lot of MSPs do that. And, through conversations with them, a lot of them get better at it. And I totally understand the challenge of it. But yeah, it's really, I think, that orientation to negative feedback and not seeing it as actually a quote unquote good thing.
Yeah, I could not agree with that more. And as somebody who's built and sold a managed service provider business, one thing that we saw was that feedback is a gift, any feedback, even when it's negative, because if you are getting negative feedback, it gives you the opportunity to jump in and have a conversation. If you're not getting the feedback whatsoever, that's normally a red flag that there's apathy in the relationship and people don't care enough about it. So interesting to see you share that.
And I mean, we use SmileBack ourselves, right? So we have conversations. I have conversations with my customer team about this, and we always, every single time we get, no matter how many, and there aren't many, luckily, but how many reds or neutrals we have, every week we have a meeting about that, and we deconstruct the entire ticket because often too, my team will say, but this doesn't make any sense. We did the things we were supposed to do. I said, well, that doesn't matter, right? But they're giving us information that this was neutral or negative. And so whether we think internally we did it the way we wanted to, what this is doing is telling us, no, we were missing something. And so we can either, see it in the ticket, we can see it in the testimonial or in the score, or we can get on the phone and have a conversation with that customer and say, hey, how can we do better? We're a little lost on this. We want to make this right for you. We want to do this right in the future. And we don't want to put that on the customer because it's our job to figure it out. But, we have to have that conversation every time, no matter how right we think we are.
Yeah. And obviously, I'll put you on the spot here, but as a CSAT focused business, you're all about CSAT. You've obviously, SmileBack have got to walk the talk with your own customer satisfaction. You've mentioned it briefly, but how do you maintain a good relationship with your MSP clients? And I guess if I was to rephrase that question, how do you ensure that you're not just reacting to negative feedback? And how do you maintain a good relationship, on an ongoing basis?
Yeah. So obviously, we take it very seriously, and we have, because we use our own product, we prototype a lot of processes that then we recommend to our clients. So we've actually tried them out ourselves first, I think, which is great. So we use EOS, and so we have NPS and CSAT as on our scorecards, both weekly and monthly. And our goal for weekly CSAT score is 100. So anytime, and we actually hit that very, very regularly. I think we've gone on 13 quarter-long streaks of all greens. And so anytime we get a yellow or a red, that's an issue. That's an L10 issue, and that is discussed, and it is addressed, and it is postmortem. Then we go deep on it every single time. And then monthly, we look at NPS, and we have all these protocols and processes in place to thank anyone who gives us a good score. And we thank them with physical greeting cards, and we send them a pair of SmileBack branded socks. So we have fun with it. And customers obviously, for the most part, like that. And then we obviously take anything negative very seriously. We have processes and protocols, but that is, as you say, reactive. And so on the proactive side, we have also a scorecard metric around number of conversations had with customers. And so our goal is 125 a quarter, which is, I think, quite a lot, quite ambitious. And so that is us proactively every quarter reaching out to customers to understand how they see. It's kind of like a quarterly business review, just informal. Are they aware of the new features and functionality that we've released? Are they happy with the service provided? Is there anything that they want, any insights they have for us that they'd love to see in the product? Can we do a demo with them right now of any feature that they're not using? And the KPIs for that team around, it's not only hitting those, but then they have KPIs around feature adoption. So they, coming out of that, we want to see X percentage more customers using Google Reviews feature, because we're not upselling. We don't have tiers, right? You get all the features when you pay for SmileBack. So there's some customers who just aren't using things they've already paid for, and we want them to use them because we know that they're going to make their business better.
Yeah. I want to share a secret here. I want to share an observation that I've made in business over many, many years. And that is that quite often, as a business owner, I have done business with a company, not specifically because of the tool that they produce, not specifically because of the app or the features, but because they're a good company to work with, and I can learn as a business owner an incredible amount from them by being in the same orbit of them. I would say this is a huge benefit for SmileBack customers working with you. They just get to be around the experts in customer satisfaction. They get to see how you treat them as customers, and they get to replicate, ape that a little bit with their own customers. So, just a public thank you for all I've learned from SmileBack about customer satisfaction, because you are making the industry as a whole better by doing this. Sure, you've got a great tool, but you are really raising the bar of education for customer satisfaction across the board.
Well, thank you very much. And we're committed to that. I think there's a lot more we can do too around that piece, because as you said, I feel the same way. And we learn from our MSPs, and our MSP customers can learn from other MSP customers. And so we really want to be getting, and that's why we are working more with you as well, as getting content out there that helps the community, that helps us, that helps them, and where it's a reciprocal relationship of sharing insights, sharing knowledge, sharing actions, sharing things that we've done that have worked, that as you say, make the entire industry better and strengthen it and just up everybody's game.
Yeah, very cool indeed. Now, I want to change tact a little bit and talk about yourself. Actually, I know you've worked in product management for many, many years in Toronto, in Canada. For different businesses. You've already mentioned a little bit about them, but how have you found the transition from being solely product management to now being a managing director, the boss?
Yeah, interesting, especially because we went from, I was a chief product officer, and then I just added managing director, and we didn't get a new chief product officer, but that was very intentional because, as I said earlier, this commitment to product that we have. And also, I just love product. So I'm never letting that go, ever. But yeah, it's been really interesting. I've really enjoyed it. It's forced me to put myself out there more and have more conversations like this, have more conversations with our customers, with our advisory council. So people like Leif Wildenberg at MyTech, get involved in things like Remote Connect 2 and have conversations with yourself and Daniel Welling and all these people who are minds in the game, which is really exciting for me because I like the intellectual side of business. And it's also been hard because there's this whole set of decisions and things that I have to think about that I didn't, I had an idea that they were going to be things that I needed to think about, but just as many things in theory and practice are very different. It's just been really interesting and also rewarding and exciting where, we've talked about culture in other spaces. I'm responsible for defining and enabling a culture in the workplace, and also how I'm responsible for defining and enabling and expressing a brand personality and living by a set of values to our customers. And that's a responsibility, I guess, I take pretty seriously, and I want to do well. And it's just interesting and cool and hard.
Yeah. How have you found managing a distributed workforce during COVID-19 and beyond?
Yeah, so that's been really interesting because I feel I'm bored with the ridiculous conversations in the world about it, where there's like all these crazy radical philosophies being articulated. But we've done it very well. I think that we were lucky in the sense that we were already moving that way just naturally. Forces of the world that aren't a global pandemic were pushing us that way. And so we already had a team in Ukraine, and I was going there from Berlin to Ukraine regularly, and that has worked really well. They're really strong, they're really committed, they're really self-sufficient. But nonetheless, I was there every other month. And then I was also starting to build a team in Canada because that's where my network is. And for the most part, and it's closer to the US, time zone wise, it's good. And yeah, we were just kind of picking up people here and there. And so once, the pandemic really forced us to be remote, we acclimated. It was a natural extension of what we already did. But at the same time, I also paid a lot of attention to the health of the team. How are people feeling? How are we taking the things we did before and enabling them in small, subtle ways, not radical ways, on the internet? Right, through things like whatever it is, Slack, through Miro is a tool we use for a lot of collaborative work, and through social things. So I think you've met Sophia. Sophia loves to do pub quizzes. She's going to do one for Remote Connect as well, actually, which is a secret that now is getting out there. And so we would have, every other Friday we would do a pub quiz, and we find fun themes. We did one on Berlin. We did one on Ryan, my business partner. We did one on Jack, who was a working student we had in Scotland. And so it was like half Scotland, half Jack. And so, yeah, just trying to maintain that sense of community, even when we can't do it in person.
Yeah, it's interesting. And I can tell you as a business owner, one thing I have struggled with is, we've got a distributed team in Team Tub here, but during COVID, it's been more difficult to stay in touch with the team to keep their spirits up. So I'm a very matter-of-fact person. We get on, and pre-COVID, I would spend a lot of time with the team socially, to keep those bonds going and that. I found it incredibly difficult during COVID, not seeing people face to face, to just to keep spirits up and to keep the lines of communication open. So it's been really interesting to observe the way that you and SmileBack, you've kept the entire team going really well there.
Yeah, and I mean, it is, I think the risk is, and this is definitely something that I have to pay attention to myself, I think everybody does, is that it's harder to take the pulse of someone. And so the risk of them drifting is high. And that's one thing that I find really hard, is that if I'm not asking directly, if I'm not really paying attention to the team, that worries me. And it's easier with a smaller team, a smaller business, than I think with big businesses. I imagine it's much more difficult.
Yeah. Who are the influences on you in your business life?
Me personally?
Yeah.
Good question. So I think I mentioned them either in this interview or another interview we did. So Symbility Intersect was a product development shop consultancy that I worked at. I just really loved it there. And I loved it because we had an amazing process. I think sometimes process gets a bad name because it's either bureaucratic and so people hate it, or there's no process and so nothing gets done. But I think process is vital, and so we had a brilliant process for software development, and so that made working fun and exciting and productive. And then we just also had a very open culture. We called ourselves the Island of Misfit Toys, which is a reference to a North American Christmas movie. We were just like, you could be yourself there. It was professional. It wasn't dictated around, you had to wear a suit, you had to do this, you had to do that. And so that was a really big influence on me. And I think also when I started out, I worked for a nonprofit, a very small one, and the founder, Adrian Bradbury, I was just out of school, and he, had already made his career and was a really smart and accomplished guy. And he just treated everyone the same, like with a level of respect and equality and care and, attention to ideas, even though I don't think I really had earned the right to say much. And so that was a big influence. And I'm trying to think if there's like books I've read that have really, so The Art of Learning, which is a book by Josh Waitkin. Do you know him? He's the movie Searching for Bobby Fischer is about him.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love that book, and just the perspective it had on how people learn, and how to approach problems profoundly affected everything I've done.
Yeah, wow. Well, so brilliant recommendations there. We'll include those in the show notes as well. Now, I know that Andrew Wallace, Managing Director, is a student of the game of business. What are you going to be working on from a personal development perspective over the next 12 months?
Ooh, vis-a-vis professional or vis-a-vis personal?
Yeah, personal, professional. Yeah, mixture.
Yeah. I think personally, it's the wrong time to do it, but have more of a social life. I can be quite a loner, and I spend a lot of time listening to podcasts and watching movies, which I love. But and it's funny that I made this decision and then all of a sudden we weren't allowed to go out anymore, but especially living in Berlin, and there's such so many amazing, just kind of small, old, weird East Berlin bars to go to. So I'd like to spend more time just sitting and reading my book potentially, and at a bar. So that's not a very inspiring thing to do, but it's something that I'm interested in. Professionally, it's really what I've been working on is trying to, I don't know if there's a course or books. It's more just, I guess, talking to other people in the space, maybe critical friends like yourself. But, how do I create a really clear definition of what my role is as the managing director, so that my team feels like they understand what's their decision, what's mine, how I support them, how they support me, and how I create boundaries around what I do and what they do, so that we have a really healthy workplace. And especially with a distributed team, there's just a lot of clarity and feelings of autonomy and empowerment and mastery, both for the team and for myself. So mostly, I think, growing my management thinking and understanding of what makes for good leadership and good management.
Very cool. And I think it should be apparent to anybody listening to this that you are a very open, very honest individual in business, as our SmileBack as a company. I should say, and I've said this publicly, I've had the pleasure of working with SmileBack for the past few months. And the one thing that's really struck me about you and the team is you're so very open. Conversations are very transparent, regardless of who is involved. Is that a conscious decision?
Yeah, definitely. I would say to the point of it being by design. And so that is definitely the kind of system, let's say workplace system, I don't know what to call it, that I like, that I value. And it comes with pros and cons, risks and rewards. For me, the rewards are empowerment among the team, people understanding decision-making, people understanding why we do what we do, and feeling that they either have been brought along for the ride or they're on board with it, or even if they're not, at least they see it. And that it's a culture where you can say what you want, like similar to what I was saying about Adrian Bradbury, where just, everyone has a voice. And I think that's important. It leads to a lot of really good creative outcomes. I think the risk is obviously, is that you make mistakes. Amazon, I guess this would be an influence on me as well, even though I don't want to say Amazon's an influence on me. Amazon has a leadership principle that something like most mistakes are reversible. And I think that's correct. And so it's okay to make mistakes because most of them can be fixed. The key is not to make catastrophic errors that cannot be fixed. And so by having an open, transparent workplace, you can manage the risk around catastrophic errors because you can see them happening, errors about to happen in real time, but you then also allow a comfort and safety where mistakes can be made and those mistakes can be learned from.
Yeah, fascinating.
That's just how I see it.
Yeah, no, totally agree. In transparency, talking to transparency, if we move back to SmileBack as a product, you're very open about your pricing. You've got an incredibly low-pressured sales approach, laid back, I should say. If any MSPs listening to this wanted to take a look at SmileBack, how would they go about that?
Yeah, so just hit the website at SmileBack.com. You can easily book a demo if you want. And as you said, we'll walk you through the product, even implement on the spot if it's so desired. You can reach out to sales at SmileBack.com, help at SmileBack.com, or Andrew at SmileBack.com. I'll personally chat about the product anytime. We take the laid back approach, partly just because Rory's kind of a laid back California dude. And I know Sophia, if you get her, is a little more intense. But we just believe that the products does sell itself. Where our value is in the consultation piece, so that you can maximize it. And yeah, we do find that just giving someone a demo or having them start a trial, which takes all of about 7 minutes, most people do sign up. And we're happy to just have a conversation about feedback and about customer satisfaction systems and their business, if that's of interest as well.
Yeah, the product just speaks for itself, doesn't it? It just works. It does what it says on the label. So yeah, I'm very appreciative of your time today. I know you're a busy man, so thank you for taking time out of your day to speak with me. But I can't let you go without mentioning Remote Connect. We've touched upon it a little bit earlier, but Remote Connect. During lockdown, you ran the Remote Connect 1. Virtual conference. I had the honor of being a keynote speaker there. Absolutely loved it. And during this sea of virtual conferences where we're all getting a bit of Zoom fatigue and it's like, another conference, you had a magician. We had a great time. It was just so much fun and the feedback was incredible. And you're doing it again. You're returning for Remote Connect 2.0 in October. So what prompted you to start a conference during lockdown?
Yeah, so good question, and thank you. I really enjoyed it as well. And I mean, in the spirit of transparency here, we are not professional event hosts or peoples, whatever they're called. And it is not the world's most professional event. It is definitely not the world's best event, but it's very much our event. And so that is what prompted us to do it. Was we just, especially me not being, say, and Ryan, my business partner, not being MSP people, one of the things that both of us found that we really liked about surveying the MSP market is the MSP community. And so I really enjoyed going to like the IT Nation Evolve events, any of the big ones, the little ones, all of it. And this actual sense of real community, not just kind of the bullshit internet communities on Facebook or whatever. And we missed that. And we were gearing up for it. We wanted to be there. And, for us, those are also obviously sales opportunities. We didn't really see Remote Connect as being able to replace that, but we just thought, let's just give it a shot. Let's see what happens if we get other like-minded thinkers like yourself and others, and we try to pull it off, and we do it in kind of a fun, casual, hopefully intimate, warm and fuzzies kind of way. And if people respond to that, and I think certainly a certain person responds to it, other people, it's not for them. But we thought we had 60, 80 people at the last one, which was good enough for an intimate conference. And so we thought if we can do that again, that's great. We donated all the money last time because we take a big loss on it. This time, the tickets are $10 because we just want people to be able to secure their seat. And we're happy to invest in it. We're bringing back the magician, and we just want to have that same sense of fun and community, and of course sharing insights and real insights, not just like you have to come correct at Remote Connect, and you have to bring good content, good recommendations, and we've carefully curated the speakers because we know they're going to do that. It's not an opportunity to sell your product, right? It's an opportunity, a genuine opportunity for the community. And yeah, we'll keep doing it as long as people enjoy it, as long as we can find a magician. And yeah, as long as we can have a good time.
It was an absolute blast. And I've said this to other people, it's the most fun that I've had as a speaker at an event. You gave me carte blanche to do whatever I wanted with the presentation, and we had some fun with that. People can go and see the video from Remote Connect 1.0 to get a view on that. It's on my blog and on YouTube. We'll include that in the show notes. But this is the first MSP event that my wife and stepchildren actually wanted to attend because there's a magician there. They got involved in the session, so it was, and I know I'm not alone in that. There was a lot of young faces popping up on the webcams and watching it as well. So kudos for putting together there. For Remote Connect 2.0, you've got my great friend Roger Edwards, who is a phenomenal marketing speaker who is keynoting. I know you've got Philip Morgan. I'm looking forward to doing a session with Eric Thorsell talking about why we're in business. This is an event that is unlike most other events within the managed service provider space, not just educational, but just a lot of fun. And, I mentioned earlier about spending time around people who are energizing, that you can learn from, that are good for you. This is the event for it. So I'm really looking forward to Remote Connect 2.0.
Yeah, me too. I feel the same way. It's, we've got speakers there to really speak to specific things, right? Namely, and we've got this big leadership and legacy piece, which you're doing, with Eric's doing, Philip's doing, Jameson's doing. I think that's going to be really interesting for a lot of people, answering questions that they have on their mind, and then talking about customer sentiment. And I'm actually really excited as well for the panel that you're doing with the folks at Uptime and Kemp, and talking about how performance and efficiency leads to good customer experiences. I think that'll be interesting and novel. So I think there's going to be a lot of great content.
Yeah. And what's the date that takes place?
October 28th.
October 28th. And if you're listening to this in the future, please check out the show notes, because we'll make all the details of how you can still go and grab that content. This is really good evergreen content. So I hope you can join us live if you're listening to this before October 28th. If not, go to the website and you can find at the SmileBack website, you can find out all the details of how to watch the recording on demand. Wallace, this has been fantastic. I really enjoyed spending time with you, getting to know you a little bit more as a person, as a managing director. And kudos for what you've achieved so far with SmileBack. It is an incredible journey that you're on, and I think the best is yet to come. So thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you very much.
Cheers. That concludes today's episode. If you would like to get in touch with myself or Andrew, all the details will be in the show notes. Thank you for joining me. I will look forward to speaking to you next time.
Hey folks, Richard here. Thanks for listening today. I know you've got a ton of options for who you listen to nowadays, so I really appreciate your support. Do you have any feedback on this episode? Ideas for future guests? Tweet me at Tublog using the hashtag TubTalk. I respond to every tweet and really appreciate your feedback. Hey there, Richard here. Now, we've had a lot of virtual events since lockdown, haven't we? But one of the most fun, uplifting and interesting events I was a part of this summer was SmileBack's Remote Connect virtual event. Thank you, SmileBack, for putting an event together and changing our expectations of what a virtual event really can be. Well, SmileBack are putting together a follow-up event, Remote Connect 2.0, and this time we're going back to the future. On Wednesday, October the 28th, 2020, we're putting aside the hype and getting back to basics. We're going to explore the tried and true foundations of good business. We're going to be offering an in-depth look at leadership, customer experience, and airtight operations. So we're going to be featuring a keynote by my main man, Roger Edwards, who's going to be talking about marketing and how to get rid of the complicated marketing speak. Plus, we'll be hearing from tech entrepreneur Philip Morgan. Plus, I'll be hosting a session with my friends Tim Swainson of Kemp and Jason Kemsley from Uptime Solutions. And on top of all of that, we're going to have various breakout sessions from industry leaders and a fireside finale with me and Eric Thorsell, one of the most successful managed service provider owners in our whole industry. Plus, of course, the return of your favorite magician and mentalist, Gary Farrar. So Remote Connect 2.0 Back to the Future takes place on Wednesday, October the 28th. Tickets are priced at just $10. And I'm going to say, if you're a fan of this podcast, I can tell you you're going to enjoy what we have planned. So for all the details and to grab your ticket, head to tub.co/Remote Connect 2. That's tub.co/Remote Connect 2. See you there. Hey team, this is Richard again. Just one more thing before you take off, and that is MSP Insights. Now, every Tuesday, I share my thoughts on the business of IT with you, the managed service community. Thousands of managed service providers already subscribe to MSP Insights. It's easy to sign up, easy to cancel. MSP Insights is basically a short email from me every Tuesday without fail with advice on growing your IT business, plus cool resources I've found, discovered, or started exploring that week. It's kind of like my diary of cool things, and often includes articles or books I've read, tools I've discovered, and events I think you'd be interested in, often sent to me by my friends and Tub Talk podcast guests. So if that sounds fun, a short tiny bite of MSP goodness every Tuesday, and you'd like to try it out, just go to go.tub.co/Tuesday. That's go.tub.co/Tuesday. Drop in your email and you'll get the very next one. Thanks for listening.